Hi, everyone. I'm Erin. I'm from Go Font Yourself. You can find me on Instagram. I know the Michaels team and the Zebra Pen team are super excited for you to be here with us. I know it's back to school week, so it's great that you could take time out of your day to come join us here. I see lots of people from all over Texas, North Carolina, New York. We're so happy to have you. So thanks for being here. I'm going to go right into our little project for today. So we're going to be making this simple fall wreath, all with Zebra Pen products. These are some of my favorite pens of all time, so I'm going to be talking a lot about them. First, I think I'm just going to go over a little bit of the materials that we're going to be using so you can kind of make sure that you have what we need. I know there was a list that went out with the workshop notification. So first I have a pencil and eraser. Those are kind of standards, right? We're going to need that for some drafting. I've got some Mildliner brush pens from Zebra. And all of these are available at Michaels. We've got the Kirarich highlighters. They're glitter filled. They're amazing. And then I've got the Zebra Pen Clickart pens. And these are pretty new to the Michaels store, so you might not find them in store at your local store just yet, but they are on the way and they're available online and they're awesome. So that's kind of the basics of what we're going to be using. I'm going to be using some Canson mixed media paper. It's one of my favorites for kind of middle of the road paper. It's sturdy enough that you can give it as a card or a gift. You could frame it, but it's also not going to break the bank. So you can use it all the time for practice, which is basically my go-to for any practice lettering or calligraphy or illustrations. I'm also going to be using this, which makes a perfect circle, but you really don't need this. You can have a bottom of a mug, a bowl, anything that's round, or you can just, freehand a circle. We're not going to be getting too serious here, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And actually, I think it's better when it's not. So these are all the materials that we're going to be using today. There was also a template that is available from Michaels, and it is all about faux calligraphy. And we're going to do a little lesson on faux calligraphy today as well. It's one of my favorite forms of lettering just because you can do it with anything. You have a pencil, a pen, a marker, doesn't matter. You can always do faux calligraphy with it. So that's why it's one of my favorite methods to learn. We're going to get into that. But first, I wanted to show you some of the kind of basics for faux calligraphy. Once you learn basic strokes for calligraphy, it's really simple to expand that into other forms of lettering, into basic lettering, into illustration. There's really a lot of things you can do once you learn the basic calligraphy strokes. And a lot of people have a misconception that calligraphy is just cursive, which actually it's very different from cursive. So calligraphy has several just basic strokes that you want to learn and that we're going to mimic with our faux calligraphy. So you really want to have the basic strokes down so that you can make your faux calligraphy look like it's real calligraphy. So I'm just going to go over some of those basics here. So we have, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you the basics of with a brush pen, just because that's how most people are going to be doing calligraphy. So I'm going to do it with this Mildliner brush side. I really like these pens because they also have a bullet tip that you can use. So you can use it either way. So the first basic stroke is going to be an upstroke. And when you do that, you want to put as little pressure on the pen as possible so you get a super thin line going up. Now, the opposite of that is going to be the downstroke. So you're going to have a lot of pressure when you're going down. And that's the basic idea of calligraphy. Anytime you're moving up, you want a thin, light stroke. Anytime you're moving down, you want to put pressure and make it a thicker stroke on the way down. So there's an upstroke, there's a downstroke. We're going to have an overturn, which is basically just up and then down. And then we're going to have an underturn, which is the opposite. And in these, you're just really practicing fluctuating that pressure from one to the next. And you don't need to worry about that right now because we're just going to mimic these with faux calligraphy. But I want you to see how it looks with a brush pen. And then we have an oval. And then we have an ascender stroke, which is basically for all your letters, and a descender. So essentially, if you can learn each of these strokes, you can letter and do calligraphy. Every single letter that you're going to make is going to be made up of these strokes. Let's do an example so you can kind of see what I mean. So for an A, we're going to take an upstroke. I'm going to take an oval. And then we're going to do a downstroke. And that, when you put it together, upstroke, oval, downstroke. So essentially, we're using each of these to create our letter forms in calligraphy. And the way that you can transform that to faux calligraphy, I'm going to be using the Clickart pens for the faux calligraphy part. So we're just going to mimic these in a faux calligraphy style. So your upstroke is going to be the same. Then we're going to have a downstroke. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to just expand over. Right? So we're trying to get this in faux calligraphy form. So we're essentially just taking this and drawing it here. So then you're going to kind of do the same thing. So you have an overturn. And you want to identify where your pen was moving downwards. And that's going to be the thick part. So in this one, it's going to be on this side. So we'll take this and we'll mimic that. Okay, so then we'll do the same thing, the underturn. And where was our pen moving downward? It was on this side. So then we're going to take this and make it match. Okay, let's try the oval and do the same shape. And where our pen was moving down was on this side. So we're going to just thicken that side. And we have an ascender. Okay, so this side was thicker. So we're going to do that same motion over here. And you can kind of see how this matches up with this, but we didn't need a brush pen and we didn't need to use pressure at all. So that's why I really like faux calligraphy is you can do it with any ballpoint pen, a pencil, a marker, anything. These Clickart pens are amazing because also I love that they're retractable. I just love retractable pens. So let's do the descender here. And the thick side is right here. There you go. So each stroke now we've done in faux calligraphy. So we're going to practice doing that for each letter form. And this is the template that you can grab. And if there's any questions or anything, if I'm going too fast, just let me know in the chat. I'm watching it. So you can see here for the A, we're going to do an oval and then a downstroke. And so where would those be thicker? It's going to be when your pen is moving down on this side, and then when your pen is moving down on the downstroke. And there we go. So we got an ascender here. And an oval. So you can kind of see how it follows a pattern. Anytime your pen is moving down, you're going to make an extra little line on the outside or the inside to make it a little thicker. And you can go back and fill these in. I also really love these Clickart pens because they never dry out. And I can attest to that because I am notorious for leaving my pens uncapped. And it's still perfect. So here, let's do a couple more. There's an oval there, and then a descender. Thicken up those downstroke areas. We got our E. And I really like these pens too because they don't bleed through a lot. Like they're kind of the perfect amount of ink in the pen. You can even use like a pretty thin piece of paper and they don't typically bleed through, but they're still really pigmented. So you can see the pattern here. So essentially we're just using these basic strokes to identify when your pen is moving up and when your pen is moving down. And it's a lot different than cursive because in cursive, your pen doesn't leave the paper, right? That's the whole goal. And in calligraphy, that is not the goal. You definitely want to pick up your pen at multiple different points. So that's what makes it different. And we're going to be using these techniques in some of the fall wreath to complete it. So it's nice to kind of practice on a separate piece of paper before your final product. And then once you get those shapes down, you're going to be set to go. I mean, you can do calligraphy anywhere you want with any type of pen, especially with faux calligraphy. Oh, so there's a question about, is there a difference between calligraphy and lettering? And that's a really good question. Yes, there is. Lettering is essentially the art of drawing letter forms, while calligraphy is based on that thin upstroke, thick downstroke. So lettering is a lot more, how do I say it? Like expansive, I guess, broad. than calligraphy. Calligraphy is a very specific to the thin up strokes and thick down strokes, whereas lettering can be any form. You can draw block letters, right? Or any and serif, sans serif, you know, all the different letter shapes. That's at least my understanding of the difference between the two. So once you kind of have a basic understanding of the faux calligraphy, we're going to use that and we're going to practice some shapes that we're going to be using in the wreath. So this is what we're going to be making today. It's using all of these zebra products that can be found at Michael's. And again, this is a Canson mixed media paper. It's what I find myself using most often. It's pretty smooth, so you can use your brush pens on it and it won't fray the tips, but it's also pretty sturdy. So it's not as thin as just regular copy art paper. I do, however, love HP, what is it? HP Premium Laser Jet. It is amazing for practicing anything. That's what I typically use for practicing with brush lettering. So those are my go-to papers. So what I kind of like to do first is draw out each of the elements that I'm going to be using and kind of plan out where I want those elements to go in the wreath. So let's kind of do a little sample of each different kind. So we have a couple different kinds of leaves that we're going to be using, and they're all just a little bit different, but super easy to draw. So first, we're going to go with a basic, actually that's kind of hard to see on the screen. Let me go with a marker. Okay, so we're going to do one shape that's just kind of like a simple curved line. Just one curved line. And then we're going to do some different kinds of leaves. So these ones I'm going to do are going to have a little bit of a pointy tip there. And I'm going to make a couple different little offshoots of those same leaves. And you can either make them symmetrical or not. I kind of go in between. So some of them are going to be symmetrical and some of them are not. These ones I'm going to make symmetrical. So I'm going to have one on each side. Okay, so that's kind of like one of these kind of things. And then just to add some detail, go back in and add just kind of some of like what would be the veins of the leaf. Down through the middle. And you can add more if you want, just because these are small, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. So let's try this one. Okay, so then we're going to have one that's a little bit more symmetrical and kind of round. And these ones I like to have just come right out of the stem. So you can see these ones, you have a stem and then you have stems for each individual leaf, which I like the look of those. You can also do it this way. So these ones are going to be more round and we're going to have them coming directly out of the stem. Kind of like a teardrop shape. And they're never going to be perfect. I have discovered this. Cute. So that one kind of matches this one that we're going to be using. And you could go back and have details in there. I just know I want to color it in. And I want to show off the glitter of the Kirarich. So I'm going to leave those empty for now. Okay, so then we've got one more of like a fall leaf instead of just a typical leaf. I don't know if that's a real distinction, just a distinction in my mind. So these ones are going to kind of be a little more jagged on the edges, so we get a little more dimension. So we're going to kind of and I try and make it a little bit symmetrical, but it definitely doesn't need to be. This. So we'll use that element as well. And then we're also going to use some basic kind of berries. So we have a couple little offshoots. And then just some basic little circles at the ends. Okay, and then let's do one more. Got kind of more of like rounded leaves, but they're going to be coming from some offshoots of the stem. And we're going to make it not symmetrical on this one, so we give it a little bit of a difference to the others. The thing that I really like about drawing leaves is there's really no wrong way to do it, because any way that you do it, you can find something in nature that kind of matches it. So just kind of go with your gut on these ones. So we have a question about would I normally draw these in pen or pencil to practice? And both. My answer is both. I really like practicing on just kind of blank paper before I go to a final project with the pens that I'm actually going to be using, but I would absolutely sketch it out first. So my answer is both. I would usually do a pencil drawing and then kind of go over it with the pens that I'm actually going to be using in the final product. Just so I can see how they're really going to look on the paper, how I can see how they're going to look with the layout. All of those kind of go into a final piece and how you want it to look. So that's kind of where I go with it. And then with these ones, I was going to draw a little bit more of the interior veins of the leaf, just to kind of give it a little bit more dimension. And these ones, it kind of almost makes it look like they're a little bit folded in the middle, like natural leaves would be. So I just kind of do one line down the middle and then two kind of little offshoots from the middle. And I want to match where they're meeting in that middle line, so it really looks like it's folded and those veins kind of line up like a real leaf would. Okay. So then what I would want to do is practice. We're going to write the fall word in the middle. So I would want to practice how I'm going to have this show up in the end with pencil. So let's do that on our practice sheet. And this comes in handy. You can use the template. I'm using all lowercase here. Uppercase is a whole different animal. They are more complicated, not that much more complicated, but you know, they're just different magic schools. So these are all just lowercase letters here in the template, but that's what we're going to be using for these. So I'm going to kind of just do a basic idea of what I'm going to want the fall to look like. So I just write it out first. Okay, so there's our basic word. And then we're going to go back in and thicken those down strokes. So I want to do a thicker one on the F on the outside here, because that's where my pen would be going down. And I tend to thicken on the outside of the stroke. And once you know in pencil where that's going to go, then you can adjust for where they overlap a little bit. So like here, I don't necessarily want people to see the line that goes through. So I'm going to go up to that line, and then I'm going to start it again here. So I'm not getting a line that cuts through that downstroke. And that's why I like sketching it out a little bit first. And you can fill these in if you want to. I just kind of like the look of it when it's just the outlines. Okay. So essentially now we have all the elements that we're going to be using to create the final piece. So we have all of these, we're going to turn into this. Okay, so I'm going to get my final paper that I'm going to be using. So this is, again, it's Canson mixed media. You can find these at Michael's. So I'm going to have my reference here. Here's my blank page. Here's more references of the elements that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to use this tool that creates a perfect circle, but you really don't need it. You can use anything. You can use a bottom of a bowl, a mug. You could just freehand a circle, and honestly, that will work out fine too, because you're going to fill in these leaves and you can kind of adjust as you're going. So don't be afraid, just any circle of any kind. But I do like this tool, comes in handy. Okay. So we have our basic circle. And we're going to start drawing these elements around that circle. And I'm going to use my pencil first and then go back in and fill it in with the markers. So kind of just get a feel for it. doesn't have to be anything specific. I'm gonna do one of the leaves over here. I'm gonna make this one the pointy one. That's kind of asymmetrical here. And you just want to make sure you leave enough room in the middle to actually write. And I am going to be going over these with marker in just a minute, so I'm sorry if you can't all the way see it. Okay, I'm just going to go over these as I go because I'm seeing that you can't really see my pencil. So I'm going to start kind of filling it in as I go, but I am drawing it first with the pencil. But I'll just do the outline here as we go along. And I'm just going to be doing the outlines first. Okay, I think you can see that a little bit better. Okay. Okay, so let's do the next element here. So I think I'm going to do kind of one of the rounded ones over on the side here. And again, it never has to be perfect. I think it actually looks better when it's a little off. Okay, so let's do green with this one. And I'm just kind of alternating the colors, but I'm using colors that remind me of fall. So greens, yellows, orange, maroon, red. Those kind of remind me of the fall season. Okay. I'm gonna keep moving along here. Okay, so let's do one of the more, let's do like some of this kind over here. And there's really no pattern that I'm using. I find it better when you don't go in an order, and when you kind of just don't make it so predictable. So you don't want to have the same things in the same place on each side. I just think it looks a little more organic that way. And we're just trying to be mindful of filling up space, but not necessarily all the space. So you do want to leave some areas to breathe a little bit. Let's do brown on this one. The other thing I really like about these Clickart pens is they dry really fast. So they're really pigmented and they have a lot of ink, but they dry super fast. So you can see I'm not smudging anything over here. Typically, if I was using a different kind of pen, I would put a piece of paper under my hand right here while I'm moving along the circle. But with the Clickart pens, I don't have to. They're just already dry. Okay, let's see, I think I'm gonna do a couple of these other ones. So I'm just kind of moving along the circle in order and kind of filling up the space as I go. Oh, paper matters for the smudging. So it might be that you're using like a super smooth surface paper. This Canson mixed media is slightly porous, so it absorbs quickly. So it's one of the reasons paper matters a lot. Definitely makes a difference in what kind of pen you use and the paper that you're using. So I think we're gonna make these orange. And if your pens are smudging, you can take like a blank piece of paper. This is what I do a lot, and just put it over the rest while you're filling in or sketching or anything like that. And that way your hand won't end up with a bunch of marker on it, if that's happening to you. Okay, let's put some, kind of want to do some of these little berries here. We're going to do a couple of those right here. And then maybe one right here. Do a little berry on the edges of these. Definitely doesn't have to be perfect. Mine are just kind of little blobs, but it works. That paper trick also works if you're like me and your hands get sweaty at all, because that will definitely impact your final product. So the paper helps to prevent that. Okay, moving along. Now I think I want to use some of these kind of more jagged edge leaves. I'm going to sketch those out first. Not perfect. That's okay. Okay. We'll go back and fill in details so they'll look a little more leafy. I think I'm gonna do just another green one here. Okay. So we've got most of it filled in. I do want to go back and add just a couple of the little berries in some kind of spaces on the outside. So maybe to kind of fill up like spaces like this. Maybe one over here. So just if there's any kind of spaces that look a little emptier, and fill those in. Okay. Okay. So we've got the outline done now. So that's set to go. So now we're going to go back in and we're going to add a little bit of color. And I'm going to use the Kirarich. These are glitter highlighters. They're super cool. I wish you could see it up close because they're really glittery. Just super sparkly. It doesn't do it justice on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and go in some places. I think I'm going to fill these in with the yellow. So I'm going to go in with my highlighter tip and just fill in that middle portion. I'm going to fill this one in too. Okay, so you can see how much dimension that already added. It's so vibrant. I love it. And then let's fill in some of these ones with the green. Okay. And then for these ones, I'm going to use one of the Mildliners to fill some of those in. So I think I'm going to do this one. Okay. And then I think we're going to use a different color for these leaves. I'm gonna fill these ones also. And then we can go back in with the Clickart and do a little bit more detail. So I'm going to just add a little bit to these. And just add line down the middle, some of those veins. Okay. So now we've got our basic wreath here. So that's all set to go. I might go back in and I just kind of put little dots along the outside of different colors. Sometimes that just kind of adds a little bit of dimension there. But to finish it off, we're going to go ahead and do our fall in the middle here using the faux calligraphy that we learned earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch it out here. I am going to use a paper because I'm probably going to smudge it if I don't. So let's go here. So I just want to fill up most of this middle space, but not all of it. And I'm trying to get it kind of in the middle, but not super important if it's not perfect. Okay, so we got it sketched out. And then I'm going to go back in and add the down strokes. And I will go over this in just a second so you can see it a little better. Okay, so I'm going to use the same fall colors that I used in the Clickart. And then again, anytime your pen was going down, that's where you want to add the extra depth there. You know, I don't know if these pens can be used on wood. I don't think I've ever tried them directly on wood. But I would imagine with a seal of some kind, they would probably work. Yeah, I can do a little experiment for you. Not in this class, but on my Instagram page, we'll try these on wood at some point. That sounds like a good test. Okay. So now we have a nice little fall wreath all finished. Actually, I think I will go in and put just some dots. And then once this completely dries, I'll want to go in and erase the pencil marks here. But yes, paint pens for wood or canvas. Paint pens would probably be my suggestion there. So I'm just going in and adding some little random dot clusters. I feel like it just kind of fills in some of the emptier spaces, and then you can get kind of more elements of that color. So like I want a little more yellow in here. So I'm going to go back in and add some of that. And you could also fill these in if you like that look better. You could go back in with the same color and fill in those empty spaces. So then it actually looks like the downstroke. It actually looks like you did calligraphy, but we're using faux calligraphy. So that's one of the benefits of it, is you can really use any pen to get the look like you've done calligraphy, even if you're not a super pro at the muscle memory, the upstroke, downstroke fun. So what colors are they? So this one is the brown Clickart pen for the F. This is orange for the A. Got this like dark forest green kind of for the L, and then red for the other L. So I'm just adding some little colored dots around the edge. And then once it's fully dried, I just don't want to smudge the glitter, and these ones take a little bit to dry. But I would go in and erase these pencil lines, any lines that are in the middle of this. And then basically we're done. So I love how you can kind of see the progression. So basically we have this template that we used, right? So our faux calligraphy basics, and that one you can get online. We practiced each element, kind of separated all of the elements, did a little bit of faux calligraphy here to practice what our fall was going to look like. Practice each different type of leaf, and there are so many different types of leaves you can incorporate, so don't stop at these. There's a million different ones. Great videos on YouTube about leaves and how to draw them, so you can incorporate lots of different kinds. And then to our final product. So that would be a great fall card. You can make it as a gift, frame it for someone. And it's super easy, simple, and you can do it with zebra pen products you can get right at Michael's. So if you do make a project like this, I would love for you to share it. And if you want to use hashtags, we have inspired by zebra and make it with Michael's, and you can find me at Go Font Yourself on Instagram. So thank you so much for joining us today.